Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Urban Words, where we dive into personal and creative journeys, especially those of the seasoned souls and folks who have been in the race for a bit. Today, I'm so thrilled to introduce a special guest. She wears many hats. She's an educator. She's an artist. She's the founder of the Coaching Business Simplified Club. She is a best-selling Amazon author, and she is a certified online marketing expert. That journey we definitely hopefully we'll get to highlight and talk about in a little bit. I want you to please welcome Alease Michelle Jones. Yes. she
Yay!
yes, she is here to share expertise on building trust, attracting clients, hopefully, giving us a little peek behind the veil in terms of not only her personal and creative journey, in terms of kind of, how she has kind of evolved into this online marketing expert diva. So if you're a coach looking to level up your game, or if you're just someone who needs some direction, you are in the right place, and you're about to be blessed beyond measure. So
And highly favored.
welcome, Diva. How you doing?
I am great. So glad to be here with you, Charles. So glad, so glad. We've had a long journey together, an exciting journey. So to have you doing your podcast really excites me. And
Right?
I'm so glad to be a guest on your show.
I tell people this story. I don't think people realize, and I tell them all the time, that you really are the reason I got started in all of this. I'm thinking I won't tell our age. You're younger than I am, but this was way back when Facebook was just getting its start, and I didn't know anything. I didn't have a Facebook page. I didn't have a profile. This is when I was just kind of starting my writing journey, and you really were the one that really kind of took me by the hand and set up all my kind of online platforms. You helped me develop my persona at the time, Professor Locks, back in the day when I had my hair, and I was more kind of. And you were always like, you have to claim, which we'll get into. You have to kind of claim who you are as a brand, but I wasn't quite there yet. So you helped me kind of put together this persona of Professor Locks, and so yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and I'm so excited to have you here. So to me, it makes sense that because you were there at the start, that you would be like one of my first interview guests, because
Yes.
really without you, I don't think I would even be here. So again, thank you so much.
With a little bit of pushing and
Right. Yeah, we'll talk about the whole book thing. Like, yeah, yeah. Y'all don't let this pretty face fool you. She will get stern and bring the fire to your butt if you're not doing what you're supposed to do. So just know that going in.
The thing is, I always see greatness in people, I think, before
Yeah.
they see greatness in themselves. And
Mm,
I always want people to have a game plan.
right.
I know we're going to get into my story a little bit, but I always want everyone to have I hate to say plan B, but we need to have that plan B, an extra
Right.
game plan, everything, because you just never, never know.
Right. 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 Um, well, let me kind of jump in here a little bit, because there's so much to cover with you. Um, Can you tell us a little bit about, because you are this kind of dynamic um, marketing expert now, but that's not where you started. I think when I met you, you were an artist educator. So kind of give us a little bit of what that journey has been like, kind of like where you started, and this kind of evolution of where you are now.
I think when we first met, I was department chair, right? And
Right, right.
educator and teaching and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And even before that, I've always had like a fashion and art background. But and I've done like, the typical fashion stuff, you model, you teach
Right,
modeling,
right,
and you go to school, you get a degree, which was in graphic design. I worked
right,
for
right,
NASCAR for a little while. Um, and then I got into education, which I knew that was my stilo, right? You
right, right,
sharing and teaching other people. So I think when we met, I was just getting ready to be or leaving department chair or somewhere along, all those years trying to mesh together. But you know the story that yes, I was department chair, grew a department from zero to almost 200 students in less than a year, but then was demoted, fired, let go,
Right.
however you want to call it, right? Uh, that really changed who I was because I
Right.
literally was, my identity was attached to that title.
Right. Right.
And so once someone tells you you're no longer that person anymore, it wakes you up and realize like what am I to do?
Right.
And I
Right.
think during my grieving time, I call it my grieving time,
Yeah.
I realized that I was so much more than that title. And
Right.
that's what led me to going back to my artwork, being an artist and branding myself online as a mixed medium artist, using vintage photographs as my work. And that was the beginning of me showing up online and doing what I currently do now. So everything has evolved.
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely want to continue, but I want to just kind of like just take a moment and because I remember that moment. I remember because she sandbagged a little bit. At least not telling you just how bad and fierce she was. Because at the time, she was I think one of the only black um, department chairs. Um,
Yes.
I think maybe Quentin was
It was another one. It was another
yeah,
person.
but she was definitely the first black woman.
Hmm.
And when I tell you, when she said building a program from scratch, she built that from scratch. And what she's not telling you is like it was one of the largest programs
Yeah,
in
it
that
was.
school. And I remember the meeting um, because you didn't tell me exact. You just said there's something they're about to make an announcement. I remember the look on your face, but I also remember the incredible um, aura of dignity you had because, and I think we talk about that. I think that I was so pissed for you because I was like, how does this diva build this thing up and bring all these students in, and now you're telling her that she's not the right one to do this when basically this is her baby, this is what she's done, and and you really were to me the blueprint of kind of like why I wanted to do this podcast and why we kind of have this discussion of especially those of us who've been in the game for a while as Gen Xers or whatever, that how do you take that trauma
Mhm.
um, and then pivot or like you did, rebrand or figure out what is going to be my next step, what is going to be my, this isn't over for me. And that whole thing, like you said, which I had to learn that lesson too, of my, I'm not my title.
Right.
Like I'm more than just this job.
Right. I think when you're right, the announcement was made to the whole school,
Mhm.
and I did leave that day for a little bit, but something God spoke to me and said, "No, go back. This is your time to I don't know the words, but to set things straight from
Right,
your perspective. Don't let someone else speak for you." And so that day I did. I stood up and said to the whole faculty and staff meeting that I had been let go, that I had been demoted. I can't even remember the title that
right,
of being department chair because I didn't have the right degree, right? And
right,
you know, at that time, I had a master's working on a doctorate at that time,
right,
that I didn't have the right degree. But the good thing was that I was going to still be teaching. I was going to go back into the classroom. And
right,
yeah, I put a smile on my face, but in the
right,
back of my mind during that time was, what are my peers going to think about me? Like, this is a step down, not a step up.
right,
In salary, it was a step up, but from title,
right, right,
it was not. And again, when you come from Generation X, we've been
right,
taught that we go to school, we do
right,
these, we get these
right,
titles,
right,
it becomes your identity.
right.
And to to make that choice to announce it myself and then say, okay, accept being a full-time professor
Mhm.
and work with that. I maybe from the outside, it seemed like I was handling it gracefully,
Right,
but
right,
inside I was not.
right,
I was scared. I wasn't. I was unsure of myself. Um, I didn't know what the future was going to hold. Most of I was mad, right? But I
Yeah.
didn't show it. I might have said some little snarky things throughout the day or something. But yeah, I was mad. So I called that my grieving moment because I
Right.
had to
Right.
grieve that position. I had to grieve that title. And when you're grieving, there are several steps that you have to go through. And I went through all of those
Right.
steps, right? Until it came to me like, do what you are good at, which was
Right.
artwork. I had just put it to the side
Right.
and say,
Right.
focus on that and let's see what happens.
Right.
So, and you were there for all that journey.
I was there for all that journey, and again, you really became. I even took this message into my um, next kind of teaching, or actually, as I moved forward, it became part of like my mantra when I met other educators that, you know, you I think taught yourself that lesson, but you also imparted that to people around you who were listening. That that we were how to begin to monetize and brand ourselves as the experts that we were. That, just like you had built this program, um, it, it it's like almost like this singer who's been on top, you know, like Mariah Carey. It's like, yeah, her albums may not do well this next go round, but like your talent is always there.
Right,
That's what
right,
you're telling us. Like, they can't take away our talent. And so
right.
we have to learn how to brand that. And just like you were able to build this incredible, program for this institution, how can you now then take that same energy directed inward and then do that for yourself?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For Gen X, that's really hard. That
Right,
is really, really hard for us to do because we were taught to go to school and then work for someone.
right, right.
Um, and if you wasn't working at a good
Good
job,
job. Right.
right, you were like almost worthless, right?
Right,
And then we were also taught that whatever we do, we had to do it better than them.
right,
And you know what
right,
I'm talking about, better than them. And to me, now that I'm older, that's a form of trauma that we had to go
right,
through. We
right,
had to negotiate that. We had to negotiate school. We had to be better than them and then
right,
be
right,
better than our other people. I mean, that's a lot to put on
right.
one person.
Yeah, I call it the super Negro syndrome.
Yes. Yes. And it's almost like, and that's
Yeah,
why I always dislike the term of strong black woman.
right,
Like,
right. It's like
don't
a
like,
trope.
I'm not
Right.
strong. No, no. I'm
No, but
like,
I'm,
I
I'm
will
humble.
pretend that something is
Right.
heavy when it's not. Yeah.
Yes, I've seen your diva superpowers up close and personal.
That's Southern charm.
It is that Southern charm. Uh, one thing we always like kind of want to mix in here is nostalgia, and we'll get back to the journey too. But if you had to think about kind of one piece of nostalgia from your childhood or teen years that influences how you kind of negotiate and work these environments, what would that be? Would it be something from like something your father shared, or just something, what?
That's really it would definitely be what my dad shared. My
Yeah.
dad was a different human being, and he raised me to be very different and be
Right.
okay with being different and doing things different.
Hmm.
But one of the things he used to say to me was two jobs were for two people.
Oh, wow.
And he did not believe in that, you break your back to work and working hard. He didn't believe that. He really believed that there were easier ways to bring in a salary, right? To make money. And your happiness is the most important thing.
Right, right.
He stressed that a lot. And
Mhm.
even as a young child, when his days off, my dad was a fireman, and so
Mhm.
he only worked one day, 24 hours, and he was off 2 days.
Right.
But during those 2 days, me and my dad would go on vacations. We would go on beaches. We would go and hang out. We would go
Right, right,
horseback riding. Like he believed in more of your time should be doing things that you love
right,
and not always working for the man.
right, right. So and now that you bring it up, is that kind of like is that where you kind of developed and how do you kind of negotiate your work life with your kind of leisure life? Because I know that you're also a happily married woman to an incredible brother
Mhm.
Alex, and
Yeah.
I know you have your kind of station within your family. Your mentor. Your again. So how do you balance all of that?
You know what? The easiest thing I can say is that I always believe in the easy life. I know now there's this new term called the soft life.
Right, right.
Um, and I value my time. So a lot of it comes from being an only child as well, is that I cannot take in but so much without having to recharge.
Right, right.
So a lot of everything that I do revolves around relaxing, relating, and releasing. Right. I learned it from one of my favorite shows from
Different
back in the
world.
day. Yeah, from different world. And I subscribe to that to the T. I
Yeah.
have set times that I do things. I have set times that I don't do anything.
Mhm.
And I think that is what has helped me negotiate so many different things because
Right,
when I do give people my time, I give people my undivided time. I do
right,
not, I'm not doing multiple things. I'm not on
right,
my phone. I'm not trying to like you get my undivided time because I've set that aside for you. And
right.
I've lived my whole entire life like that. And I think that's why I was so good at my work as
Mhm.
well as my job because I set time to do certain things, to grow the students, to grow the department, to grow my colleagues, my
Right,
faculty members, all of that. I set time to do that. And so I had to learn how to do that for myself. And
right.
I think I did pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the thing, and again, I encourage any of you if you're whether you're a coach who's looking to kind of upscale or you're just a creative or somebody who's just trying to figure out how do I even get started. Alease is so wonderful in terms of how she kind of walks you through that process. I've seen her in the classroom, and she's so dynamic in that. And trust me, as somebody who's been in the education game for like 30 plus years, I've seen some lazy educators where basically they just kind of like babysitting and them kids are just in there doing what they doing. At
Right.
least you're gonna sweat. When you go to her classroom, it's like I think we team taught one time. I think I
Hmm.
was doing a video class and you were doing a fashion marketing class.
Uh-huh.
But like every session she had like something concrete, like some new application, some new platform, some new website. Like you're always going to take something tangible from whether that's her classroom experience or one of her like someone who's done one of her coaching sessions. Like my hand was cramping, like I'm taking notes. Is that something that you brought from the classroom? Because you definitely seem like you kind of evolved that into how you deal with your clients.
Oh, most definitely. I just did a training yesterday, and one of the I think I said, y'all, I don't know everything. I don't wake up knowing this, right?
Right,
And so one of the my clients said, "But do you know about so and so, so and so?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, you can go here, you can do this, you can do
right.
that." She was like, "Well, it seems like you wake up knowing those things," and I'm like, "No." I think when I retain information, I
Right,
really love things that I can implement in different ways.
right,
Right.
right,
So I love the journey that you're going on with this AI. I think AI coming is the most, I mean, some people have some bad things to say about it, but I see that it is such a great tool to help us live an even more simpler life when we know
Right,
how to
right,
implement it in a way to make our work easier. And
right,
I love that you're going that way as well. And I try to implement that and teach those to my clients as well. Don't do stuff hard. Like,
right,
just learn how to do things the
right,
easy way and simple way. If you don't like the word easy, let's do
right,
simple.
right,
We
right,
do not have to go through life doing
right,
things hard
right.
and struggling.
I think what's interesting is dealing with the whole AI, and I guess because we've been in the game for a while, and I guess we're on the creative side. I look at it as, and I was surprised that my students were, some of them were so resistant to AI because they're like, "Oh, this is AI and blah blah blah," and it's the big bad boogeyman. But it was like it's a tool. It's like, and that's the way I approach it. It's like, it's not going to replace me as a creative or content creator. It's just there to supplement what I do. Like you said, to make things easier. To me, it's just like I'm working on a video project now for Black farmers, and it's like 20 scripts I had to like generate, which would have been crazy to do by my on my own. But using Chat GPT, I
Yes.
just kind of like put the and you showed me this also, just kind of put the information in. It's basically learned how I write and talk. And so I would say, okay, now that you have this information, can you generate, 3-part script, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, once I had that template down, it was like just cranking them out and then going back and tweaking it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's just, I don't, again, we come from the generation where we were doing everything by hand.
Right,
There was no computers, there was no internet.
right,
And then so we grew up with the age of internet coming in,
right,
right? And
right,
then we
right,
grew up with the cell phones. We didn't have any of this stuff. And now AI, like, oh my gosh,
right,
I guess that's how we can see how there's so many different applications for this that
right,
no, this is not going to replace me. It's just
right,
going to
right,
make me better and make
right,
me be able to get to the money quicker.
right, right, right. So so we're kind of talking about it. How has your kind of perspective on creativity evolved? Whether that,
Using AI.
or just in general, like in terms of your creative process. Um,
You
yeah,
know, I'm okay. So I don't want to say how much I lean so heavy with AI, but even in my artwork, I always started with something first, right?
right,
And that's
right,
where vintage photographs came in. I always start with something and build on to that.
right,
And that's what a mixed medium artist is. And
mm,
so for me, AI and all this new stuff and technology is it's the beginning. And now I get to add all of my my little fanciness to it to make it something totally different. So yes, I love Mid Journey is out there. I love that Chat GPT helps me outline things. It just helps me. Shoot, I use ChatGPT to help me outline a schedule that
right,
works for me,
right,
right?
right,
So
right,
I put in all my stuff like, hey, this is what I got going on, this is what I'm doing, but this is what I have to do for a client. How do I schedule all this and not lose my mind?
right, right.
Right.
I,
So yeah, it's been a really good thing to my creative process.
yeah. I One of the things that and you kind of touched on, one of the things I definitely will be part of this kind of podcast and ministry, if you will, or just message, is this sometimes ability to trust the journey and the process. You talked about, your journey of kind of having to step down and kind of move in this different direction. And I remember when I went through something similar, in that when I was laid off, and there I had, and it was just like this incredible period of, like, I had lost my mom. I'd ended like almost 17-year relationship, leaving my home,
Hmm.
my career. So in my mind, what am I if I'm not an educator? What are my title? And ironically, this is when we started working together on the book. And this is when the nice nasty kicks in, y'all. So I remember it was like a 2-year process, because I was like, and because I was like hyper focusing, like, because Alease had helped me get started on my career as a culture critic. And so had started writing my blog. She got me started with that. I started writing for Q City Metro as
Yeah.
as
And you were a host on a show, radio show.
I was like, I did the Creative Loafing. I was a host with Ramona on so it was like this. Everything was kind of like brewing, um, and so because of all this writing, I had this kind of art, this kind of archive of work, and you were like, okay, why don't you put a book together? And when I said I dragged my butt on that and hyper focused and I remember at one point, at least, like, she was like, "You let me know when you're ready," and like deuces, like, and I didn't hear from her for like a year. But it was like it was such a big kick in the butt that I needed because, and I remember when I finally came back with my tail between my legs, and your big advice to me, what I still tell people is, finished is better than perfect. Shoot,
Yeah,
like you have other things to do. This is just one item on your creative list.
right.
Can you talk
And you
about?
can always go back and work on it,
Yeah,
like once it's
yeah.
done. Yeah, nothing is written in stone.
Right, right, right. So, can you talk about a time similar where you had to kind of take a leap of faith and kind of be fearless in your career or even personal life?
Yeah, I remember that question you posted. I would say when I decided to leave teaching altogether
Oh, yeah,
and take, the job, the school that I was at was doing some downsizing. This is after me being an instructor for quite a while, right? And I was having this conversation with myself anyway. Do I jump into the entrepreneur or do I stay like part time? But there was an opportunity for me to take a severance pay and leave.
uh,
And I took it and ran, right? I took it and I ran, and it was scary at first,
right,
but I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I used to say this to people, and it's not to be gruesome, but I just remember how tied to having a job I was.
right,
I said if something would have happened to my mom, like my
yeah,
mom would have passed away, I would have quitted my job and started a business. Like I would say that, right? I was waiting because I knew that mom having a job made my mom proud of me, right?
right,
And I didn't want to disappoint her.
right,
But when that opportunity for me to leave
hmm
and with a severance pay, and
right,
still I think I could teach part time. I think it was
right,
another
yeah, yeah, I
option.
remember that.
Um, I left, like and have not turned back. And
Right,
that
right,
has been over 8 years.
right, right.
8 years. So yeah, that was real scary. I had to call my
Yeah,
fiance at the time and you don't have to ask for permission, but
right,
you still
right.
want to,
Like talk
share what's going
about
on.
that. Yeah,
And he was encouraging. He gave me a card. He took me out like it was a celebration.
yeah, yeah.
So it was scary. And even, 1 year in, 2 years in, it was still a little scary.
Hmm.
Then, COVID hit, that got a little scary.
Right,
But the one thing I can say that I really appreciate that I did take that leap is that my mom and aunt got sick. And if I was working full time, I would not been able to take care of the both of them, right? And finally, put my mama in a situation that she's better, in a facility that she's better, and she can be taken care of. But I would not have been able to do that if I was working, being a
right,
teacher, even with our schedule that we were
right,
doing. It was
right,
flexible,
right,
but it still was. I wouldn't have been able to do what I had to do.
right.
So yeah.
Do you think people sometimes ignore the kind of so whatever your belief system, God, the universe, whatever, it's like I feel that if you're not moving towards your divine purpose, then your spirit gets irritated, like things are right, like 'cause
Not irritated. I think it's an insult
right,
to,
right, right,
yeah, I think it's a pure insult if you're not working and doing things that God gave you this ability to
right,
do, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it's an insult. It's an insult to him and your creation.
right, right. Because
Hmm.
'cause I know that when I was we were both at this place art school, and I remember kind of when I signed on, it was a different environment. Like, I think I could bring like my authentic self in terms of what I believe as an educator, as a creative, as a mentor, all of that. Um, and somewhere it shifted, and then it became not that, and to me it just became really toxic. And so I think there were signs that okay, you need to probably start moving away from this. And very similar to, and I remember you giving me that advice that when they started, divvying out these severances and because some people didn't move on that. And I distinctly remember the day because I just finished teaching and they said, I couldn't even sit down. They said, you need to go down to the conference room.
Hmm.
And then I get there and it's like the president, HR, the dean. It's like the Holy Trinity. Like, okay, I'm like, okay, damn, this is not good. This is
Right.
not about the Christmas party. And I remember, I couldn't stand the little short president. You loved it. I would say he loved you, the little short president. There are not many men that at least don't work our magic on. But we didn't get along, and so he was kind of leading the meeting. And I remember when they were going blah blah blah, and he said severance and like how much you're going to get based on each year you were there. And it's like that Snoopy thing, that Charlie Brown when it just goes one. Like I'm like, dude, just be quiet. You had me at severance. Like
Severance,
I'm
right?
like deuces. I'm so out of here. So I was like, so I'm like. So God is telling me, like, not only do I get to leave this nonsense, yes, it's scary, but I get to leave on your dime with a little change in my pocket and give me a little breathing room.
Right.
Can you kind of talk? Have you seen that with clients, or do you kind of encourage them that when they see that sign, or if they feel like they need to give themselves that kind of like grace and period where you have to, it might be scary, but you have to kind of go out there and be open a little bit.
Yeah. I think, because that same situation happened to me. And there
Yeah,
were so many other people who could have taken that same route and that
right,
severance, and they were like, no, no.
right.
They wanted to stick it out. And I'm
So
like, I
fearful,
just
right,
right, so fearful. And I'm so in a way I'm glad I saw that in
right,
other
right,
people and saying that I understand what your fear is,
right.
but I would think it's even more scary not to trust yourself
Mm-hmm.
and what you are capable of doing, and you're putting your life in someone else's hands.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, I just think it's fear that stops a lot of people. And I shared a story with someone a couple of weeks ago, the same thing, right? And it was a guy there who did not take the severance, right? And he was older than me, and he said he went to his financial planner, and his financial planner said, no, just go ahead and work a couple of more years. And now this guy was really close to retirement
Right,
age,
right,
right?
right.
And really didn't, from what I can sense, didn't really need the
Need the
money.
money,
Okay?
right, right.
Um, and he stayed. He
Mm,
stayed until the school closed.
hmm.
And a year later, he died.
Wow, wow.
And I take that and say, you just don't know
Hmm.
when it's your time.
Right,
And I don't know how to say this gracefully.
right.
Um, you just, when I think all the severance pay and all of this stuff happening was God speaking to us and saying, I need for you to be your next self, your
Right,
next
right,
best self,
right,
right?
right.
Because I think about it and I see all the people who were there
Hmm.
and what they are doing now is so much better than what
Right,
they were doing when we were working all
right, right,
together.
right, right.
So I think we all needed that push. If not, we would probably all be still there, you know, still there,
Right,
not taking any vacations, right?
right,
Since I've been, gone, I've been everywhere across the
right,
world, right?
right.
And probably had more money then, What did I
right,
do now?
right,
But
right.
I don't know. Something was just holding me and making me stuck and feel like I wasn't able to do all these things. And
Mm.
so I'm just glad I did take it and take the leap and did it scared.
Do you think that, because you bring up something interesting in terms of, it seems like I, and I agree with you, I did more when I had less. Like it was almost like, again, God, the universe had to strip me down bare. Like I had to lose the title, I had to lose the comforts of a home, I had to lose the and when you look back on it, it's like I had all those things, like you said, that as especially people who grew up in our generation, they told us if you work hard, you get the degrees, you go out and work for a good company, you know, that company's supposedly going to take care of you and you will be fine. And so I had the title and the money and the clothes in my closet I wasn't even wearing and ties with the tag still on and suits and but was not happy. But it
Right.
wasn't until, you know, and I tell people all the time, it's like it was that kind of almost like going into the wilderness and getting awakened again that I realized that I had spent 20 something years and similar to you, I was very good at what I did. I was like, I had learned how to nurture and inspire and teach other people how to find their voice, their gifts, and exercise that. But for some reason along that journey, I forgot to do that for myself.
Self.
And
Yeah.
that's when I think, you know, that kind of catharsis of kind of being pushed out there. But that's when, you know, I also got into the writing and discovering branding myself, you know, as this Professor Locks and then this urban nerd. And that's when all the and being and you helped me get my first book out and becoming, you know, Amazon best-selling author in my, you know, the Urban Nerd series. And so all these other things started happening because and it was when I had less.
Right. Mhm.
That's the weird part. Do you think that that's a typical journey for folks, for those of us who are kind of like in this?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a typical journey. That concrete office jail that we were in made us feel like we were in the matrix. That's
Right,
the
right,
best way to say it. We were in the matrix and we just didn't know what was outside. And once the matrix framework is torn down, we're able to see like it's a new light, it's a new
right.
world. And I think this experience happens to so many of us
Hmm.
when we are open and know that this incident is really a new stepping stone for us. Some people are going to see it as more tragic, and if they see it as a bad and tragic thing, then they're going to carry it to their next experience as a
Right,
tragedy thing. But
right,
I think as we were leaving or the matrix was being torn down, we saw this as a new opportunity
right,
and a
right.
good opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what is something you're kind of most proud of in your kind of creative or professional journey so far?
I guess the thing I'm most proud of is my brand and my presence in my business, right?
Mhm.
Um, where it has gone and has it developed, right? And so
Right.
I think when I'm okay, so this is being a little cocky. So what I guess I'm most proud of is that I can walk into a room and
Right,
people know who I am.
right, right,
And um and are excited to see me. And I,
right,
I and I shared this even at my husband's event.
right.
They were asking, "Where's your wife? Like, where's your wife?" Right? And
You like Michelle Obama. They're like, okay, that's all cute and nice, President, but where's Michelle at? Where's Alease?
I want to make sure we are all charged up here. My computer act like it was. Yeah, it's charged. Yeah.
So does that come from? Because I will tell you, I was on your YouTube channel And again, for somebody who's kind of known you for so many years, it blew me away of how many subscribers and how many, you know, views. I was like, it was like, is this the same Alease that I knew that we started together in this little art school? And she's now, it's almost like you feel a little guilty because, like, I think for those of us who've had you, we've almost like wanted to hoard you to ourselves, but now it's like you belong to everyone now. It's like
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of blowing up and having this kind of like more social media global exposure. How how do you move differently? Do you feel different?
It does make you a little bit more aware of that people recognize you.
Right.
So even with me and my husband, we can't be cussing each other out in public.
Cameras come out.
And, and because people know you, like
Right,
they
right,
notice
right.
you. And I've gone in Walmart looking like a hot mess, and someone has come up to me and said, hey, Alease, and blah blah blah, and I'm like,
Right.
who are you? Like, who are you? Right? But it's I'm just a small, mechanism in all this other things,
Right,
right? My
right,
channel is okay, it's good. I would love for it to be bigger,
right,
but I just know that we go back to what we believe in. God said to me that you are have been born for greatness, right?
right, right.
And you were born to be an educator.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I do. I just teach what I know. If you ask me a question, I'm going to teach and share whatever I know to you. And that's who I am to the bone. And I think outside people appreciate that and know that's who I am.
Right, right,
And I come to you authentic, right?
right,
What you see here is what you're going to see out there. There's nothing different
right,
about
right,
me. I tell people I'm not a extrovert. I'm an introvert, right? I
right,
don't have
right,
much to say. It doesn't sound like that because I'm talking, crazy like all the time on YouTube, but I have to recharge. So I
right,
think
right,
my people understand that, and
right,
when they do see me in public, they know that if I'm giving you my undivided attention, I'm giving it to you, and then I'm
right,
going to have to recharge
right,
afterward.
right. So you so you bring up something really interesting because I think that what I found is not in stone, but a lot of creatives have a tendency to be introverted, and
Mhm.
like like people are like, well, how are you introverted? You do it. No, it's like I have to do a whole ritual before I go in the classroom. Like it's like I have to almost take on a different persona. It's it. I'm naturally soft spoken, so talking like all of that is like takes a, and that's what people don't understand. Like when especially when I had the full time teaching gig, when I come home, it's like radio silence. Like I can't
Right.
do anything.
You
It's
don't
like
want to talk to nobody.
yeah,
You don't want
no, don't
to
talk to me,
nothing.
don't bother me. I got to be still. I got to be quiet because that's a recharge all that energy. I don't think people. I don't think do people really understand what it's like, what it is to be introverted, like what that kind of social battery is.
I don't think so. I don't think. I think I posted something from somebody else, and I had a client who is an extrovert,
Oh
and
yeah,
she did not. I think when I posted this video and said this video really explains who I am,
right, right,
until she saw that video, she responded back. She says, "Now I understand."
right,
Like
right,
she said, "I didn't understand that.
right,
That give us room to say no, or give us
right,
room
right,
to think about if we're going to do it. Because although I might have agreed to do it a week
right,
ago,
right.
doesn't mean the day of I have that same energy
Energy,
and
right,
level
right,
today."
right, right,
So, give us grace, give us room to know that, because you never know what happened that day of. I can't
right,
go
right.
from one event to a next event to another event. That ain't gonna work. That's just not gonna work for me. So yeah.
Yeah.
And and teaching to me is you are performing.
Oh yeah, it
You are
is.
performing for a
Good.
class.
Yeah.
so that, if they see you excited about the subject matter, then you have to perform that. And so, I don't think people understand. I know my mom used to say, all you did was teach. I'm
What?
like, girl,
What?
you have
Right.
no.
It's funny because when they had the whole COVID thing, we were forced online, and
Mhm.
typically because I know my social battery, I'd always kind of arrange to have like, although taught like a 4 class schedule every semester, I would do like 2 classes a day, and
Uh-huh.
so that gave me enough. I could go in office hours, teach, have a little break, teach another class, and then I would be okay.
Right.
We did the COVID thing, and I think they thought that was a cue to kind of like start stacking classes so people weren't. I think they did it more for the students. So yeah, in theory, it looks good to like knock out all your classes on a Tuesday or Thursday or
Right.
Monday or Friday. But I had a schedule like that and it almost killed me because I'm like, yeah, in theory, it's like I was doing classes back to back and I was done Tuesday, but it was like I, by that third class, I was like, I'm just staring. I'm like, it's like I have nothing else to give y'all. It's like talk amongst yourselves.
Yes. Yes.
I was like,
Yeah.
do you
Go ahead.
do you think that that's kind of like the unrealistic um, schedule for those of us who kind of do that type of work? Like we have to be realistic in terms of kind of stair stepping how
Yes, we
yeah.
cannot do that. Not at all. Doing a training once a day is enough
Uh-huh.
for me.
Yeah.
Enough. And then I'm gonna need a break the next day. So I
Right,
can't
right,
do one
right,
here and then another one the next day.
right,
Like
right,
I
right,
need 1 to 2 days in
right,
between.
right,
But if you give me that 1 or 2 days in between, that next day for the class, I am going to be fire, right?
right,
Because I've
right,
gotten
right,
all this rest. You're
right.
going to be getting all this stuff from me. Yeah, I think most creatives, and I think
Yeah,
if more people understood the way we are creative, even as a graphic designer, I think,
right, right,
or when people ask you to do creative projects, I think more people think creatives just come up with stuff. Like
right.
it's just there. But what happens is our creative ideas happen through our rest time, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
come up with things in the shower. We come up with
Right,
things when
right,
we sleep. We
right,
come up with things when we're watching one of our shows and be like,
right,
oh,
right, right.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Right? It just doesn't happen. And I think people who are non-creatives just don't get that.
right, right.
Creators don't work a 9 to 5. Like we don't work within a framework of 9 to 5.
Yeah,
That's just
right,
it
right.
doesn't happen.
What because we always like to kind of represent Gen X and the OGs here, but what do you think? What is a kind of common misconception of about Gen X, especially in the workplace or kind of like in these kind of creative environments? Do
I I would say
Gen X
Gen
or both of them?
X.
Yeah.
I think Gen X has gotten, we were the latchy kids, so
Right,
we
right,
we took care of ourselves. Like
right.
we didn't need babering and babying, and we did everything ourselves, right? If we broke a leg, we probably would try to mend it ourselves too, right? And so I think the I would say the stereotype for Gen X is that we are hard nosed. I think
Uh,
we don't take a lot of crap,
hmm.
and we can give out crap, but we don't take a lot of crap.
Right,
And I think as we're getting older, I think Gen X is tired.
right,
I
right.
think we feel like we've held up a lot of stuff because we've gone through so much transition. We've gone through so
Mhm.
many technology changes, and
Right,
from we really are the first generation that came out of that pension plan, like how
right,
a company would take care of you for the rest of your
right,
life. So
right,
we're that generation that actually got to experience. No, a job does not take care of
right,
you for the
right,
rest of your life,
right,
and that we had to change our mindset because we went into those jobs thinking that they were going to be there forever for us.
right, right, right,
And so I think we're just tired. I think we're
right.
tired of that. We're tired of that whole, I think, corporate BS.
Hmm.
And we want a whole lot more freedom because we're now taking care of parents.
right,
And we're seeing that they've worked all their lives and now they're at a stage that they can't even enjoy their last
right,
years
right.
because they've worked for the man.
Man,
And
and the man didn't take care of them.
correct,
Right,
correct. And so I've learned that, don't depend on the man to take care of you. And I want to live out my joyous life when I can.
right,
I'm 53. I don't mind sharing that.
right, right. Don't
And
look it.
what's that?
Don't look it.
And I want to still be able to do things, not have to get on a plane with a on a wheelchair. You know what
Right,
I'm
right,
saying? So, um, I just think we're tired and we're ready to live out our lives and as early as possible.
right, right. What do you think is a trend or kind of pop culture moment that Gen X nailed, that maybe others just don't get? And then you talked about I don't think people like realize like the whole latchkey kids, like there was a whole movement of children moving through the neighborhood like caribou. Like you would leave, there would be like hordes of kids walking like, and not just like across the street, crossing like major thoroughfares and going to
Yeah.
school, and everybody had a ribbon or something with a key around their neck because we didn't believe in like babysit, or well, nobody could afford like daycare or anything like that. So you were basically letting yourself in and out your house as a child.
Correct. And cooking for yourself.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah. I think what we nailed is being self-sufficient.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Think we nailed that to the T as in, and I think it's so hard for us for of people who need so much care and explaining of stuff. Like, I mean, gosh, with the internet, could you imagine if we had the internet? Like,
See
I
it all
can't
the time.
because
Yeah.
everything we just had to figure out. Like,
Right,
we
right.
just figure it out. And if you were looking for an answer, we had to walk ourselves to the library
Right,
to
right,
find out the
right,
answer.
right.
So I think being self-sufficient is definitely what we nailed. Um, and just figuring it out,
Hmm.
figuring it out and not, I mean, I think one of the things that we did badly is that we figured it out without asking someone else. Like we
Right,
just because we didn't want the other person
right,
to see our weakness.
right, 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 right. Exactly.
So I think what I've learned from the new generations is that it's okay to ask for
Yes,
help,
yeah, right.
and not trying to be this, I hate to say use that word strong, but just
I call
it's
it,
okay to ask for
yeah,
help.
super Negro syndrome. Uh,
Yeah.
if you could bring back something from the 70s, 80s, or 90s, whether it be a show, a trend, or whatever, what do you
I
think?
think what I bring back, and I mention it, is a different world.
Oh,
That show, the different world.
I heard they
And
might be doing a reboot.
I don't think so.
Right? You
I don't
can't
think
you
so.
can't capture the lightning in the bottle.
But I think the reboot would be more like where they are right now, like
Yeah.
but grown,
Right,
right?
right, right,
Maybe, Dwayne is a professor or the
right,
dean of the school, and Whitney
right,
is like I don't know, some professor or something,
right,
but
right.
but the grown version,
Version of them.
yeah. And yeah, and the focus is on them and how they're dealing with being a Gen X and now in this world. Like
Right,
maybe,
right,
Whitney is taking care of her mom.
right,
And,
right.
so things like that. I think that bringing that back. And another show would be Girlfriends. I think that was more in the 90s though,
Bro,
right?
it's so
Yeah.
incredible. Like
Yes. I
it
still am in love with
I
Tracy
still,
Ellis Ross.
right. I still watch the show. The thing I was surprised about Girlfriends, and I don't think people who realize that that show was executive produced by Kelsey Kramer, like
Oh, was it?
yeah, like what's his name, Frasier. It was like that. He exactly. So this incredible show about these four black women, he was executive producer.
Oh, I did not know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's odd. And I'm watching now because it's a reboot of Frasier out.
Right. Oh, what?
Yes, and that's really good. It's really funny.
Rachel's one of those TV characters that has really had an incredible long shelf life. I mean, he started off in Cheers and then went to his own show and had all this success, and now they're kind of bringing him back. But
Yep.
he's like the TV sitcom cockroach. Like he ain't going nowhere.
He looks the exact same.
He does. He does. Um, so what's next for you, kind of creatively or professionally? Any exciting projects?
I think I am nothing really new. I'm still doing what I do. It's growing. It did, and I want to be honest. It did take a hit during the time I was taking care of my mom.
Right.
So what's for me is taking my therapist's advice, right, and
Mm.
getting out more.
Love hearing about therapy. Yeah.
Getting out more. So I'm still working my business, but I've gone back into education just a little bit for part-time, just to be I love the, consistent check. As an entrepreneur, you always love that consistent
Right.
income, but being social, right? One of the things my therapist was saying to me, yes, you start a business, you have a business, but sometimes you are working in a silo and sometimes you just need to be around people. And being around people has energized me, and being around students again have
Right.
just made me appreciate that this young generation comes to me. Like just recently, one of the students are getting ready to graduate, and she asked me to read her essay
Mm.
before going into college. And that really made me feel good to
Right.
say
Right.
that even this generation appreciates my opinion and
Right.
thought
Right. Right.
on what they're doing.
Right. So would you, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's definitely been part of my healing and journey of evolution is, do you think that more Black folks, more Gen X folks need to really be open and embrace the idea of therapy in terms of kind of helping us evolve?
Yes. I think therapy should be the same as we going to the doctor.
Hmm.
And again, I think this is really important because my mom has dementia. And they said
Yeah.
one of the biggest things of dementia is depression,
Right.
right? That can trigger dementia. And
Right.
so I know during even COVID and then taking care of my mom and all this kind of stuff that I was really like down. Like I wasn't getting any work done. I was tired. And even holding on to memories that really dictate the way I move about life was wrong. Like I didn't figure that out until my therapist really worked that
Right.
through. And it's like, Alease, that's not true. That's not whatever you've been thinking, that's not true. And then she made me not made me, but she strongly said, now give me some whatever memory or give me some evidence that you feel like whatever you think is true. And I couldn't, right?
Right. Right.
Everything I was giving her was saying what she was saying to me was true.
Right.
Does
Right.
that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
So, and I held on to this particular memory, oh my gosh, for man, over probably 40 years,
Wow.
that what I thought that happened was true. And
Right.
then when we put it in a different perspective, it was not true at all. And it made me see my parents in a whole new light. And I
Mm.
wish I would have figured that out a whole lot earlier.
Yeah.
You know?
I know that, especially because for our generation, one of the things that I had to um, work through is that, and I think especially because we were given all these kind of edicts in terms of how things are supposed to go. So giving myself permission that maybe everything my family and parents had told me was not necessarily not true, but not necessarily the right thing for me. Um,
Correct.
and that I had to give myself permission and encourage myself to find a path, even if it was off the beaten path, even if it was scary, even if it was so divergent from anything my family or social circle um, was accustomed to. I needed to say that I'm worth that exploration.
Right. And
Yeah,
more
yeah,
and more.
Yeah.
Definitely. So look, if you ever get a sponsor, we need to have a sponsor from a therapist or from some
Right.
therapist
Right.
app like BetterHelp or Better Me. I
Yeah.
think that's one of those.
Yeah.
So heads up, any of you guys listening, we need that sponsorship,
Right.
right?
Because I tell you, it's like one of the things we talk about on here is that pivoting and that rebranding, but I would never have been able to do that if I had not been under the care or in the kind of therapy process. Because again, dealing with you know grief of my mom, grief of losing my career, losing a relationship, all this kind of loss, and not having the tools to kind of how do I negotiate this loss? How do I negotiate my next steps when I feel like I'm so mired down in all of this? I mean that was a lifeline for me.
It definitely was um it was a very eye-opening for me too. And I had my therapist for over 2 years.
Wow, wow.
Hmm.
It's funny because I remember this was a lifeline, and I remember when I was in therapy because we went through the same thing at in my mind, my go-to is always education. Like I'll just go get another degree. And so I remember we were both in the kind of doctorate program, and we were trying to negotiate that. And I remember my therapist was like, "Okay, but if this is what you say you want to do, and I'm not an expert in that field, but it seems like you already have everything you need. Why do you need this kind of?" Do you think that that's part of one of the drawbacks of our generation, thinking that we're not enough? Like we always have to have this kind of outside validation of a degree or credentials or
Yes, yes, and get all these degrees. And even now, Charles, it creeps in.
right,
And
right,
I feel like, do I need to go back to school to finish the doctorate? And I'm like, girl, what do you
right,
need that for? Like, you
right.
don't need it.
You already doing it. You already
Right. You
right,
have done it,
right,
right? And don't want to do it anymore. So, what is this doctorate degree going to do to
right,
you, right? Do for you? Nothing.
right. I mean, that's the thing. At least you're not only have you done it, you built a platform and coaching business, and you're showing other people how to do it.
Right.
Um,
And here's our thing. Out of my client base, I would say about 20% of them are PhD graduates.
wow, wow,
And so I am trying to show them if you got this doctorate, let's flaunt this.
right,
Like that's let me show you how to position this
right,
so that it's not just for your job, it's for other
right,
things.
right.
Mhm.
Um,
And I
and
think for them, they realized that once they got that doctorate, it did not increase their salary like they thought it was. Right.
well, I think we both talked about it because I remember because I was doing a program where it was hybrid, where we would do classes online, and then you have like these concentrated classes at the school in Atlanta. So I was
Hmm.
traveling like once a month to Atlanta to do these courses. But I remember being in class. I think I came back one weekend. I told you I was like, what was interesting when we kind of went around and talked about what our career goals were. Most of the people in class, most of them were in like um,
Secondary, high, like,
secondary education,
hmm.
and so they all were trying to get to where we were.
Hmm.
And at that time, both of you and I had been like not only in higher education, but now had moved into administration, and and in terms of like I'm already making more money than all of y'all.
Right.
Some of y'all got more advanced degrees. I'm like, so why would I have? And I think that's when it became again that kind of clarification point. Like, I don't think I need any more credentials to validate who I am right now. I think I
Right.
have enough. I'm enough right now.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, so with that, what the last thing I'll ask you is, what advice would you give somebody who's in a similar situation of their own kind of creative chaos, or if they feel like they're in a career transition right now, or they just kind of feel like they're maybe professionally or creatively stuck? Yeah.
I would just say to spend some time thinking about what you want to do, you yourself, and not outside noise. And spend a weekend at a hotel getting relaxation, and actually writing down what it is that where do you see your life? Where do you want to be in 5 years? How does it look? What does the environment look like? And then get clear on that, and map out a plan.
Right,
And know in
right,
the back of your head that everything is not written in stone. You can change. You can
right,
always,
right,
it's always flow, ebb and flow.
right,
Um, and just work with it. We've all
right,
gone through it and we did not die from it.
right, right, right.
It's just, it is what it is, as my mama would say.
Right,
It
right.
is what it is.
Um, and I would also encourage folks that if you are at that kind of point of contemplation, you need to schedule like ASAP a session with Alease. So with that said, how do they get in contact with you, Diva? If these folks are out here, these Gen Xers or these creative folks are feeling befuddled.
Well, you can find me on any platform from YouTube, from Instagram
Yeah.
to Facebook by going to Alease Michelle. That's ALEASE, Michelle with two L's, MICHELLE. AleaseMichelle.com. That's my website. But I hang out there, but I hang out a whole lot more on YouTube and
Right.
on those other social media platforms. So just Alease Michelle.
Cool.
That's where you can find me on all platforms.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Diva, for hanging out with us at
You're
Urban
welcome.
Words. This has been absolutely thrilling and a delight to have you on, not only as a guest in your field of expertise, but also as a friend, somebody I love and admire. Um, and also just shout out to all of you guys out there. Thank you for hanging with us and building the community of Urban Words, where we kind of get, worded and nerded. Each episode, we get a little closer to the truth. If you need to contact me, you can contact me at Charles at urbannerdmedia.com. If you want to potentially have, episode ideas or want to be a guest yourself, drop me a line. But other than that, guys, thank you again. Big shout out again to Alease. And we're going to be signing off and look for you guys next time.
Peace out.
Bye-bye. Worded and nerded.